What's going on, guys? This is DaWoblefet, and welcome to Mechanics Monday, a series where I pick a mechanic to analyze each week that may be underexplored or unknown to players in the VGC community. This week, we're going to be exploring what happens when many of the various timers in VGC hit 0. Having confidence in your knowledge about how the different timers work can be a great help in managing your decision time, understanding what will actually happen if you time out, and being aware of how to take advantage of your time and round time scenarios. Let's start at Team Preview. In VGC, if you don't choose all 4 Pokemon that you want to bring to the match in time, the game auto-selects the rest of your team for you based on whatever slot your Pokemon are in, from left to right and from top to bottom. For example, suppose I only locked in my Smeargle here, and I haven't opted to lock in any of my other 3 Pokemon. The game will automatically bring Smeargle first, and then the other 3 Pokemon will be the first slot, the second slot, and the 4th slot. As you can see, Smeargle and Xerneas are sent out first, with Zygarde and Incineroar following suit in the back. Notably, if you lock in all 4 Pokemon at Team Preview, the game will respect your decision and not randomly choose Pokemon other than what you've brought. This means at Team Preview, if you need extra time to think, after locking in your 4 Pokemon, you can just sit at Team Preview doing nothing until the clock runs out, potentially helping you come up with a game plan for the match without having to worry about explicitly pressing confirm. During move selection, timing out will always default to the first move slot on a Pokemon being automatically used. For example, Zygarde and Xerneas here have Thousand Arrows and Dazzling Gleam as their first attacks, so when the move selection clock reaches 0, that's the attacks they will use. Despite the game defaulting to the first move, you can't do anything like use a different attack while choice locked, or use a move if you ran out of PP, so nothing too weird there. Importantly, if the attack is a single target move, it will randomly target one of the opponent's Pokemon. For example, if I time out here and Incineroar has Flare Blitz in its first slot, then Flare Blitz will randomly target either of the opponent's Pokemon. It doesn't matter if you had explicitly targeted another slot last turn, or even if you targeted your ally. It's still a 50-50 to determine which slot Flare Blitz lands on, but it will always land on the opponent. In order for your attack to be counted before the move selection timer reaches 0, you need to make sure the attack is inputted completely. For example, if I hover over Protect here on Zygarde, but don't actually confirm the attack to target Zygarde, Zygarde will use Thousand Arrows instead, because I technically didn't select my move in time. As a result of this, it's impossible to time out and use a Z-move or Mega Evolve, as using a Z-move or undergoing Mega Evolution requires you to select your move completely. Notably, if you manage to lock in your moves to the left slot in time, but time out before you can enter your attacks on the right slot, the left Pokemon will still be able to take whatever action you had it do in the left slot. For example, in this case, I was able to put in a switch for my left Pokemon slot, but I wasn't able to put in an action for my right Pokemon slot in time. As you can see, the left Pokemon slot was still able to switch out successfully. This also means you cannot time out into a forfeit. If you run out of time before locking in a forfeit, then you won't forfeit, and your Pokemon will still actually attack. So, how can you apply this? Well, for starters, there are some moves you really shouldn't be putting in the first slot of a Pokemon's moveset. For example, imagine if you accidentally timed out using Heal Pulse and healed one of the opponent's Pokemon. Or imagine if you used Fake Out on a turn that wasn't Incineroar's first turn out. A poignant example I remember of this was from Matt J's 2014 Regional Winning Team and Tournament Report. Listen to what happened in Game 2 of his top 4 match against Ashton Cox, with Matt J's Kangaskhan and Mienshao.
The second match, I could have ended it right there, but I don't know if I was tired or just spaced out or what, but I took too long looking at my Pokemon in the back and let the turn time out. It chose Fake Out on both of my leads, which both of them failed. I mean, I could have at the very least feinted or Sucker Punched to do at least some damage that turn, but that was my fault and no one else's. He wiped out half my team that turn and easily won Game 2. By Game 3, I had him pretty much figured out. I'd predicted correctly, got the speed advantage again, and cleaned house. We went to 3 matches.
On the screen are a few moves that I think you should never have in the first slot because of the great potential for things to go wrong. This is by no means an exhaustive list. Now, you might say, But DaWoblefet, I'll never time out in a match. I choose my moves in 5 seconds every time. So I'll just put Fake Out first because I want to use it on the first turn my Incineroar is out. Well, good for you. But I don't see why you should risk timing out in a tense situation for the sake of aesthetics. It's just not worth it. So what is good to put in the first slot then? It's hard to say, since whether or not a move will be effective depends a lot on the situation you happen to time out in. Protect is usually a safe bet, because it's relatively safe, and also allows you to intentionally not select your moves if you want to use the extra time to think, if you already know you're going to use Protect. To give an example of this, in this match at Worlds 2018, Case Victory was almost certainly going to lose Game 1 against Jibaku. Rather than forfeit, however, Case took the opportunity to think through his game plan for the next game, letting the game time out on Protects to buy as much thinking time as possible. Of course, timing out into Protect might certainly be disadvantageous in many scenarios, but you generally want to put a move in the first slot that would be your most reliable option if you accidentally or purposefully timed out. All in all, just steer clear of putting the moves I mentioned earlier in the first slot. When switching a Pokemon in as a replacement for U-turn, Volt Switch, or in general replacing a fainted Pokemon, timing out will cause the leftmost Pokemon to be replaced first. For example, if my Incineroar here U-turns, and I wait out the full U-turn timer to think about my game plan, my Smeargle will always be replaced here if I want to take that extra time to think, because Smeargle is in the left slot. Similarly, if both of my Pokemon are knocked out, the Pokemon will be replaced from left to right in the left and right slots. That is, Zygarde and Smeargle will be replaced in the left and right slots here, respectively. Nothing too surprising. What about when your time itself reaches 0, though? Instead of immediately ending the game, a player that runs out of your time still has 1 turn left to select their moves. As you can see here, despite the your time clock hitting 0, I'm still able to freely select my moves. And once I lock in for the turn, the attacks play out. If your time runs out, the game doesn't automatically apply the loss until literally everything in the turn is complete. For example, as you can see here, Zygarde is able to successfully transform into Zygarde Complete before the automatic loss is applied. Moreover, if a Pokemon can come in as a result of a switch, the game forces you to send in a Pokemon there as well. The game's not done until you would have the option of choosing your moves for the following turn. Finally, in the extremely unlikely scenario that both players happen to run out of your time on the same turn, the game would apply the classic tiebreakers to determine the winner. That is, whoever has more Pokemon remaining will win, then whoever has the greatest percentage of HP throughout all 4 Pokemon, then whoever has the most total actual HP. We'll talk a bit more about that later with Round Timer. Because you can view the current amount of your time that your opponent has left, there are occasionally situations where playing to the opponent running out of time may be your only win condition. Additionally, certain defensive teams, like Guard Split Chansey Stall, can abuse the weaknesses of your time to force wins on the clock. From my personal testing, the fastest time you can mash in 2 actions takes 4 seconds. I personally didn't notice a difference between using the buttons and using the touchscreen, though if you need to choose different moves, the touchscreen will definitely be slightly faster because you don't have to use the D-pad to change which move you're selecting. When I only had 1 Pokemon remaining, however, I was able to personally mash my attacks for 1 Pokemon in just 2 seconds of your time. Attempting to mash both a regular switch and an attack, and a double switch could also both be pulled off in 4 seconds each as well, but I needed a stylus for each of those. In addition to me mashing A as fast as I possibly could in person, I did some research on what the theoretical optimal task mashing time is. By using input redirection and www.wzx's RNG tool, I was able to test spamming inputs from a computer over a Wi-Fi network to see what the limit might actually be. While I was limited in doing it in this way, I was nevertheless unable to improve my mashing times. If you can post a video of you inputting your moves for 2 Pokemon in 3 seconds of your time, please let me know in the comments below or on Twitter, because I'd be really curious to see what you can do. Besides your own technical skills, the style of 3DS that you own can also affect how long it takes to input your moves. If you've ever played with an old 3DS and a copy of the Generation 7 games, you might notice that flashy Z moves or other big animations can really slow down the frame rate on the cartridge. This lag also occurs when there is a bunch of things to draw on the screen, which can easily occur if there's a lot of big legendary Pokemon for the game to showcase. A very notable example of this is for Moltres in Primordial Sea. My phone's quality isn't the best here, but I hope you can see that the lag on the old 3DS here is pretty substantial. Based on Zaxabeast's Peak Calc, Ultrasun, and Ultra Moon tool, I was able to determine that the game redraws the battle scene with new stages of animations every 4 frames. I assume this means that battles in Generation 7 run at 15 frames per second, at least on the new 3DS XL. However, the lag on the old 3DS systems can cause an input delay that actually affects how quickly you can input your moves. For example, I tested mashing and attacks for both my new 3DS and old 3DS with Zygarde Complete, Lunala, Mega Rayquaza, and Duskmane Necrozma out on the field. I was able to mash in my moves in 4 seconds like normal on my new 3DS XL, but on my old 3DS XL, my best time was only a 5-second mash. While obviously 1 second is not really a big deal, especially when mashing isn't exactly a critical component in Pokemon, I'm still pretty confident that on average, old 3DSs will cause their user to take more your time to input their moves than if they used a new 3DS, even if the lag only happens to be a few extra frames in normal cases. I should note that things like researching the game's FPS is not my area of expertise, but I haven't read anything that conflicts my personal testing on the subject, so that's what I have. The application from this mashing information, apart from knowing that, generally speaking, it takes 2 seconds per Pokemon to input an attack, is that your time stalling is going to be very difficult to pull off if the opponent knows what they're doing. Let's assume your opponent has 2 Pokemon remaining, and your only win condition is to continually recover with your Ho-Oh, in hopes that they run out of time fast enough. Let's suppose they have 31 seconds of your time remaining. With optimal mashing, this means the opponent has 7 regular turns left, and then they will have an additional 8th turn when the your time clock hits 0. If your hope was that the opponent just couldn't break Ho-Oh before your time runs out, you'd better make sure that you can hang around for 8 whole turns. On the flip side though, if you know your opponent legitimately cannot outdamage your Ho-Oh without landing critical hits, you can start using Recover optimally to account for when the end of the battle has to occur in the worst case scenario for you. For example, suppose you have 12 recovers left, and you're wondering when you should start spamming them against your opponent in case they get a string of critical hits or something. Assuming the opponent inputs their attacks with 1 second remaining on the second to last turn, starting to spam Recover when the opponent has 45 seconds of your time remaining will guarantee that you optimally use Recover to stall out the opponent. While this is less important in VGC 2019 with 7 minutes of your time compared to the terribly low 5 minutes present in VGC 2018, it can nevertheless be important to consider all your win conditions when analyzing a tough endgame scenario. Plus, if your opponent isn't able to mash their moves in 4 seconds or doesn't think to try it, going for a your time win may be viable at even earlier stages of the game. In addition to your time, a global timer exists each round of a live VGC event called Round Timer that is manually kept by judges. Because Round Timer isn't exactly an in-game mechanic, I'm just going to cover it briefly. At the start of the round, a 50-minute clock is set. If any players aren't finished with their best of 3 match by the time those 50 minutes are up, a judge will come over and let the players know that they only have 3 turns remaining in the battle. If the game still isn't completed by the end of those 3 turns, the judges will take a picture of the Pokemon remaining and determine who the winner is based on old tiebreakers. First, whoever has more Pokemon remaining will win, so if you're up 3 Pokemon to 2, you'll win right there. If both players have the same number of Pokemon, then judges will calculate the percent of HP each player has for their total team by summing up the remaining HP of all healthy Pokemon divided by the total HP of all 4 Pokemon. If players tie after that, then whoever has the greater number of actual HP will be the winner. Technically, if both players tie in that respect again, then the match is a tie, but I've never heard of a case like that happening in my 6 years of playing VGC. I've personally received conflicting statements about whether or not round time is public knowledge. At the regional level, I've called some judges over and they were willing to tell me the state of round time, and in others, I was told asking for the state of round timer was strictly against the rules. I know that round time has been displayed publicly at the North American International Championships and the World Championships, so maybe it's just up to the particular organizer's discretion, but I'm not really sure. I personally wear a watch to VGC events and write down the time at the start of the round on my notes in case my matches go to time, but I've never gone to round time personally at a regionals level event or higher. If you're interested in more information about round timer, I encourage you to read the VGC rules document, which is linked below in the description. And that's all for today's Mechanics Monday. By understanding how the different timers and Pokemon work when you run out of time, you can understand what's going to happen in various situations without being caught off guard, and you can even use it to your advantage in certain situations. Do you also strongly dislike Pokemon Showdown's current implementation of your time that doesn't actually behave like your time at all? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, have a good one.